Why NASA's improbable idea on Yellowstone supervolcano will never work. NASA scientists came up with an idea a decade ago to save the world from a supervolcano eruption beneath Yellowstone National Park that could end humanity. Even though volcanologists have since quashed it, scientists are still talking about it. NASA scientists came up with an idea a decade ago to save the world from a potential supervolcano eruption beneath Yellowstone National Park that could end humanity. Their plan would prevent one of the world's largest supervolcanoes from erupting by sucking out its heat and cooling it with water. It's an ambitious and expensive proposal. It's also logistically impossible and, according to volcanologists, would do nothing to reduce Yellowstone's explosive potential. The 2015 theory would never work, and NASA has never tried to make it happen. So why are people still talking about it? This was a spur-of-the-moment calculation by a few scientists who were looking at the possibility that Earth was threatened by a future catastrophe, said Mike Poland, the scientist in charge of the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. But that was never a plan. It was never seriously considered. The plan was more a thought experiment than a serious proposal to save the world from Yellowstone, Poland said. It was something the agency's Planetary Defense Coordination Office considered. The Planetary Defense Group looks at things that could potentially threaten the planet, like asteroid impacts and so on, he said. Large volcanic eruptions are one of the things that could potentially impact the planet, so that's one of the things that they consider to be a threat. So they did a separate study on how that threat could be mitigated. Four scientists at the California Institute of Technology's Jet Propulsion Laboratory wrote a 26-page study titled, "Defending Human Civilization from Supervolcanic Eruptions." The study concluded that while supervolcanic eruptions could be devastating to humanity, they could be avoided with large-scale engineering. Supervolcanic eruptions occur more frequently than large asteroid or comet impacts that would have similarly catastrophic impacts on human civilization, the study said. We assessed whether future supervolcano eruptions could be dampened, delayed, or prevented by engineering solutions. The study was submitted to NASA in 2015, and that was it. Poland says the study would never have been published if Brian Wilcox, the study's lead author, hadn't mentioned it in a 2017 interview with the BBC. It never actually got released, he says. Then, Wilcox released it in response to some Yellowstone news stories. The study characterized Yellowstone as the greatest supervolcano threat to the US, and perhaps to all of human civilization. An eruption on the scale of Yellowstone's most recent eruption could eject 10 quadrillion kilograms of ash and sulfate aerosols, enough to blanket most of the continent and create a regional or global volcanic winter, causing widespread agricultural failure and famine. To prevent future eruptions, scientists have concluded that Yellowstone needs to and can be cooled. If it were to happen, NASA would drill more than 160 holes 6 miles deep into the rock above Yellowstone's magma chamber. Water would then be injected into the holes at high pressure to gradually cool the volcano's ambient temperature to about 662 degrees. At that relatively lower temperature, the likelihood of an eruption would be significantly reduced, and a human-threatening crisis could be avoided. The process would be slow and expensive. The study estimated a baseline cost of $3.46 billion, which would be offset somewhat by the enormous amount of geothermal power generated during the process. Even for a supervolcano as large as Yellowstone, it would take less than 50,000 years for such a cooling system to completely capture heat from the magma chamber while generating electricity at a competitive price, the study states. While the study identifies several supervolcanoes that could threaten the United States, the world, and humanity, it focuses primarily on Yellowstone. The scientists admit that the task seems daunting and perhaps impossible, but conclude that it is doable. Given the potentially enormous costs of a supervolcano eruption on a regional or even global scale, we consider this eruption to be potentially feasible, valuable to stimulate future research, the study said. It seems quite plausible that this entire venture could be self-sustaining after the initial investment through the sale of generated electricity to the national electricity grid.